checks in. When you have to push yourself without validation, without a crowd, without hope. But this silence is sacred, because it's in the silence that real power grows. You start seeing your old self fade, the man who used to explain himself, gone. The one who overthought everything, gone. The one who tried to prove his worth, gone. And what's left is raw discipline. Not motivation, not inspiration. Discipline the kind that doesn't need permission. You stop saying, someday. You stop waiting for the right moment. You realize the right moment is whenever you decide it is. Because that's what breaking does. It removes the illusions. You start understanding the truth behind everything you once chased. Love, approval, comfort, they're all temporary. But growth, that's eternal. Every rep in the gym, every late night at the desk, every quiet morning where you choose to focus instead of scroll, that's when the monster starts forming. But here's the twist. The monster isn't evil. He's necessary. He's the version of you that stops waiting for the world to be fair. He stops negotiating with weakness. He doesn't hate the people who doubted him. He thanks them. Because now he's free. Free from the need to please. Free from the prison of expectations. Free from the noise. You see, pain taught him one truth. You don't grow when you're comfortable. And that's why he doesn't seek comfort anymore. He seeks control. Control over his emotions, his thoughts, his focus, his energy. That's real strength, not being unbreakable, but being unshakable. The monster doesn't lash out. He doesn't scream for revenge. He studies, he trains, he works. While the world talks, he moves in silence, brick by brick. Until one day, the same people who broke him will whisper his name in disbelief. But by then, he won't care. Because when you truly evolve, revenge becomes irrelevant. It's not about proving them wrong. It's about proving yourself right. That's when you start walking differently. Not like a man who's angry, but like one who's certain. He's seen what pain can do, and he's grateful. Because without it, he would have never met the version of himself that refuses to quit. The monster was never created by hate. He was born out of necessity. Because sometimes, to protect the good that's left in you, you have to become something ruthless. Not toward others, but toward your own weakness. That's the awakening when you stop fighting people and start fighting your limits. When you stop asking, why me, and start saying, try me. And from that moment on, nothing can touch you. Not fear, not failure, not the loneliness. Because once you've made peace with being alone, no one can ever use isolation against you again. That's when the silence becomes your armor. That's when your calm becomes your weapon. They call you emotionless. You call it discipline. They call you distant. You call it focus. They say you've changed. You whisper finally. Because this isn't bitterness. It's awakening. The good man didn't die, he evolved. He learned that peace isn't found in people. It's found in purpose. And now he's unstoppable. Because when you combine purpose with pain, where you get power that can't be destroyed, there comes a point where the fire inside you stops burning wild and starts burning precise. At first, your pain felt chaotic, uncontrolled, destructive. You wanted to tear everything down them, the world, yourself. But one day, in the middle of that storm, you realize something powerful. You don't need to destroy anything. You just need to rebuild, brick by brick, habit by habit, day by day. The monster they created doesn't scream anymore. He plans. He trains. He moves like a man who already knows the outcome because he's not competing with anyone else. He's only in battle with who he was yesterday. That's where real strength begins. Not in proving your worth, but in becoming so disciplined that doubt starts fearing you. You stop craving motivation. You stop waiting for the right mood. Because now you know if you move only when it's easy, you'll never move at all. Every morning feels like a test. The alarm rings and comfort calls. But you remember the nights you cried, the moments no one helped, and that pain becomes fuel. That's why you get up. You don't chase energy. You create it. You've learned to love the repetition. Because repetition is what built you when nothing else did. While others scroll, you build. While they sleep, you train. While they doubt, you move. And here's the truth. Consistency doesn't care about emotion. It doesn't care if you're tired, sad, or uninspired. It only asks, did you show up? The monster shows up. Every day? Because he knows discipline isn't punishment, it's protection. Protection from regret. Protection from weakness. Protection from the old self. You start to realize something no one tells you. Pain isn't the opposite of peace. Disorder is. Pain is structure if you know how to use it. Every rep, every cold morning, every lonely night, they're not suffering. They're sculpting. That's why you're not angry anymore. Anger is a reaction. You've moved beyond reaction. Now you respond. Strategically. Deliberately. Calmly. People see that stillness and mistake it for emptiness. They think you've lost your spark. They have no idea that's not emptiness. That's control. Because when you've rebuilt yourself from dust, you don't waste energy on noise. You use it to build empires, to build peace, to build a life that feels earned. The monster they created isn't raging anymore. He's studying. He's crafting. He's watching quietly, and not for revenge, but for timing. He understands something most never will. Power is patience. And patience is a weapon. He doesn't talk about his plans. He doesn't broadcast his grind. He just keeps sharpening in the dark. Because he knows one day the light will expose everything. And when that day comes, he'll be ready. You see, the rebuild isn't loud. It's not glamorous. It's early mornings, late nights, silent progress. It's skipping distractions that used to control you. It's deleting what drains you. It's realizing every time you say no to weakness, you say yes to your future. That's why you stop explaining yourself. You stop seeking understanding. You've outgrown the need to be seen. Now you're too focused on becoming. And you know what's beautiful? The world won't even notice it happening. They'll wake up one day and wonder how you did it. But you'll know it wasn't luck. It was loneliness turned into focus. Pain turned into pattern. Doubt turned into discipline. That's the rebuild. And once you start, there's no turning back. Because this version of you doesn't crumble anymore. He doesn't break when things get hard. He doesn't beg life to be easy. He simply says, I've been here before. And he keeps walking. Every scar becomes a map. Every setback becomes instruction. Every loss becomes a weapon. You stop running from your story, you start using it. Because every time life tried to destroy you, it was teaching you something. That you don't rise by luck. You rise by will. And that's why the monster never sleeps. Not because he's obsessed with success, but because he remembers what it felt like to have nothing. That memory is his fire. That silence is his edge. And that focus is his revenge. The truth is, the world didn't break you to destroy you. It broke you to reveal you. It wanted to see what you'd become when there was nothing left to protect, when comfort was gone, when you had no one to rely on but yourself. And you didn't just survive, you transformed. You became something else. Something colder, quieter, sharper. Not emotionless, but controlled. Not kindless, but selective. Not fearless, but familiar with fear. You learn that peace isn't about escaping pain. It's about carrying it without collapsing. That's the monster's secret. He doesn't hate the world anymore. He just sees it clearly. He's no longer distracted by illusions, by fake smiles, temporary highs, empty validation. He's not chasing applause. He's building purpose. Because somewhere along the way, he realized you can't destroy a man who doesn't fear loss anymore. When you've already lost everything that made you soft, you become unstoppable. That's why his silence scares people now. Because silence is misunderstood power. When you stop explaining yourself, the world starts assuming, and assumptions breed fear. They say, you've changed. But what they really mean is, you stopped being easy to manipulate. They say, you've become distant. But what they really mean is, you stopped giving energy to people who never deserved it. That's the monster's philosophy. He gives nothing freely anymore. Not time, not emotion, not attention. Everything costs energy, and he guards it like treasure. He learned the hard way that not every battle is worth fighting. Sometimes silence wins wars words never could. Sometimes walking away hurts more than revenge ever will. But make no mistake, the monster is not peaceful. He's calm. And calmness is a far greater weapon than rage, because calmness means control, and control means power. He studies everything, every conversation, every failure, every move. He's always learning, always adapting. He doesn't need validation. He creates his own approval through results. That's the philosophy that terrifies the weak. You can't manipulate someone who's detached from praise. You can't control a man who's already faced his darkness, because he's no longer afraid of it. And that's the real transformation. When your demons stop controlling you and start working for you, you don't fight them anymore. You use them. You redirect anger into ambition. You convert loneliness into discipline. You transform rejection into momentum. That's the true alchemy of pain, turning every cut into armor, every doubt into drive, every failure into foundation. You realize something else too. The monster isn't evil. He's just free. Free from the need to please. Free from the fear of being misunderstood. Free from the illusions that keep others chained. He knows peace now, not the soft kind that hides from struggle, but the kind that walks through fire without flinching. Because when you've walked through enough pain, you stop fearing it. You stop reacting to it. You just move with it. The monster doesn't wish for happiness anymore. He seeks clarity. He seeks control. He seeks truth. Because happiness fades, but purpose endures. Pleasure dies, but power lasts. He understands now. You can't build an empire with comfort. You can't build strength and softness. You can't build greatness without loss. And so he smiles, not because he's healed, but because he's awake. He knows everything he lost built everything he is. and that everything he feared was the doorway to freedom. Now, when people try to test him, he doesn't react. He observes. He calculates. He acts when it matters, not to prove, but to demonstrate. Because the strongest man in the room isn't the loudest. He's the one who can sit in silence and still dominate. That's the monster's way. That's his creed. And once you live by it, you stop chasing peace. You become it. You stop chasing strength. You embody it. And when people finally ask, "What happened to you?" you'll simply say, "I met my darkness, and I didn't run." He disappeared for a while. You thought he gave up, but he was only rebuilding piece by piece, quietly. Because healing isn't loud. Transformation isn't public. It happens in silence, when no one's watching. When you start doing the work, not for recognition, but for redemption. He used to chase things: approval, love, belonging. Now he attracts them by not needing them. That's the paradox of power. Once you stop chasing, everything starts moving toward you. He walks differently now, not arrogantly, but with certainty. He speaks less, but every word carries weight. He doesn't need to prove he's changed. His presence says it for him. The people who doubted him, he doesn't hate them. He thanks them. Because their rejection gave him solitude. And solitude gave him clarity. And clarity gave him control. That's the secret everyone overlooks. The ones who left were part of the plan. They had to. Because if they stayed, he would have stayed small. If they supported him, he would have stayed soft. Sometimes the universe strips everything from you, not as punishment, but as preparation. You don't build greatness in comfort, neither you build it in chaos. In nights when your mind screams to quit, and you whisper back, "Not today." He doesn't talk about discipline anymore. He is discipline. He doesn't post motivation, he lives it. Because discipline isn't about doing what you love. It's about doing what's necessary. Even when love is gone, energy is gone, hope is gone. He's learned that dreams don't come true by chance. They come true by control. Control of your emotions. Control of your focus. Control of your reactions. He's learned that people won't believe in you until you win. And even then, they'll try to say it was luck. So he stopped explaining himself. He just works. He just executes. He just shows. Because explanation is for the weak. Execution is for the chosen. Every morning now feels like war, but he's no longer afraid of it. Because he's built for it. He's trained his body to move without motivation. His mind to act without emotion. His heart to push without hope. He's not chasing happiness. He's chasing legacy. Because happiness dies the moment pain arrives. But purpose feeds on pain. And he's got a purpose now. To become untouchable. To become undeniable. To become that quiet storm that everyone underestimates until it's too late. He doesn't need to announce his comeback. The results will scream it. He doesn't need to prove they created a monster. The silence will confirm it. Because real monsters don't roar. They watch. They wait. And when the time comes, they strike. But not out of anger anymore. Out of precision. Out of clarity. Out of control. And when that moment comes, he'll look around and realize the world hasn't changed. He has. The noise still exists. The chaos still surrounds him. But now, none of it touches him. He's calm. He's composed. He's calculated. He's become the storm itself. So this is what happens when you break a good man. You don't destroy him. You strip him down until only truth remains. And from that truth, he builds something unshakable. You create a version of him that no longer bends, no longer seeks, no longer fears. The man he was died, but the one who replaced him, he's eternal. Because he no longer depends on the world. The world now depends on his energy. He's what happens when pain meets purpose, when loss meets awareness, when heartbreak meets hunger. He's what happens when a man realizes that nothing can hurt him anymore, because everything already did. He's what happens when a good man breaks and then builds himself without mercy. And so he walks again, not to prove a point, but to build an empire. Not to be liked, but to be remembered. Not to destroy others, but to master himself. Because that's the final evolution, the end of the story, the birth of the monster.